Four Nations face off. All right, so if eggs weren't so expensive, I would have brought props, and we could all put egg on our
Thoughts,
face
Dakota?
about how I'll just say I was wrong. I won't lump you all in with me. But the Four Nations Face Off has been a runaway success, not only in the quality of the product, but in the performance of the product. People watching hockey. I, I don't know. What's your guys' mea culpas or takeaways from the 4NFO?
Well, this I probably shouldn't be proud of this, but I don't think I was. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of in-season tournaments, but I don't think I was railroading the concept that much because I like the international portion of it. I was just like, I don't know if people are going to give a shit about this. So I am both right and wrong because I was playing both sides of the fence. So that's my mea culpa is not having a more pronounced take, I guess. But yeah, I think it was all predicated on how seriously the players were going to take it, and the players all seem to take it pretty seriously. So yeah, it's been a good product. I think if the players half-assed it, the fans would have half-assed it, and you would have seen that in the quarterfinals or whatever the opening rounds were. And the ultimate championship, which is going to be what tomorrow, would have reflected that. But like, it's probably going to be a madhouse tomorrow, and it rightfully should be because the players are taking it seriously.
Yeah, I was wrong about it, and I just definitely think, I have a lot. I grew up with a ton of hockey friends, like mostly surrounded by hockey people, and I always sort of experience this. Like, hockey players have this inferiority complex where they always want to dog on basketball and dog on the NBA because hockey isn't as popular. And I don't necessarily disagree with them. I'm probably I lean more hockey, even though I played basketball. Um, but I've always just said, like, there's nothing that's ever going to close that gap. Like, basketball is just too more globally relevant. But things like last week with how bad the NBA All-Star product was, and I mean just probably the worst it's ever been. And on the other end, how good of a product the Four Nations thing was. That was a needle move in the direction for hockey that I think, if you start stacking those up, and maybe that gap does close after a while. Because at the end of the day, say what we want about how sports are so corporatized and the business of it and all these things and different ways you could just sort of manipulate fans and suck all the money out of them. Ultimately, like, people want to watch sports that that they want to that they think are worth investing in, where the players try, they actually give a damn and put in real effort. And I just think, more and more people might start to go away from basketball if the product stays the way it has been. And I think any sort of average person, if you watch those two things, you would say, hockey is has more redeeming qualities than what we were watching from the NBA. So I just thought it was an interesting sort of, again, like a needle move in the direction of hockey. That maybe it's a sign of things to come.
Well, at the risk of being a little hyperbolic, like, have we really seen a change to a league or a change to a conventional approach to things make such a massive difference in terms of like how engaged the fans are in any sport compared to this? Like, think about the NBA in season tournament, the changes they've made to the All-Star game. Baseball, they've expanded the playoffs, they've tweaked things that way. The pitch clock, things like that. There have been all sorts of these changes and tweaks and whatnot that have been going. The kickoff rule in the NFL, and for the most part, they're met with a good amount of trepidation by fans, resistance. It takes a very long time for them to warm up, but like, this seemed to really engage people right away. Like, there is legitimate buzz and juice for the championship. And maybe it's a little bit different if the championship is USA versus Finland, not USA Canada, which is kind of a good rivalry. But even still, like, that is ultimately a good thing. Like, they position themselves to where there is a marquee matchup, and there was always a path for there to be this marquee matchup. So just kind of racking off the top of my head, it's like you really do have to commend the NHL because leagues we're certainly in an age post COVID where leagues are trying all sorts of things because they learned that they need to be able to adapt. And a lot of it is either falling flat or neutral. but this is like a legitimate boon for the NHL, which is not something I feel like we see like a lot. It's feel like something we see a lot these days.
Yeah.
Dakota, I'm glad you brought up the NBA because my dominant take was going to be crossing sports, and I was worried that it was going to seem like it came out of left field. So I don't know if you guys know, one of my bits is that Victor Wembanyama stinks, and he doesn't. I'm aware that he doesn't, but I do hope that Victor Wembanyama fans were watching these games.
Oh my God.
Because so Wemby was billed when he came in as I've done this before. I've looked it up. I'm not going to look up, but two quotes I recall was one, he's the single greatest professional prospect in sports history. That was one quote that was offered. Okay. Ludicrous. The other was he is Hakeem Olajuwon, LeBron James, and Magic Johnson all looped into one. That was the second one. So with that level of hype, for me, there's no way he's not a bust. The only way that he fulfills that hype is he's got to win minimum of 5 championships, 6-7 MVPs. Like he has to be the greatest professional athlete since Babe Ruth.
He has to have like a decade-long run.
It needs to be out of this world. And so the reason that this kind of circles back to hockey is Connor McDavid is he's the greatest hockey player I've ever seen in my life. And that's coming on the heels of two other very big hyped players in Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin, who both lived up to their hype. And then obviously I didn't see, when Gretzky came in, but I obviously saw Gretzky. So, but like to see McDavid, like that goal that he scored where he made every other player on the ice look like a junior player. And he put, Charlie McAvoy, who we can debate the merits of him as a top level defenseman all we want. But he just made him look like a tree trunk. To me, it was just one of those like, wow, I hope all these people on the NBA side where hype is all they got basically nowadays, we're watching another sport and being like, oh crap, like this other sport, like they also have their amazing studs, and their studs are more studly than our studs.
When I watched,
I'll just say quickly, I've never seen an athlete in person I was more impressed watching than McDavid. Like of every game I've ever watched, I've never seen an athlete who watching them in person as opposed to on TV, I was like, holy smokes, like watching them in person does not truly do it justice to the level of McDavid. Like the speed alone is insane how quickly he gets up and down the ice.
Yeah, when I watched that goal the other night, I went to thinking about how back before I moved down to Boston, despite growing up around hockey, I didn't play hockey. Like I said, I played basketball, so I'm not like good at hockey, or I'm not a great skater at all. But I started playing men's league, and it was just mostly a beer league. But at one point, this one guy started playing with us who played Division I at UVM, and he obviously wasn't trying that hard against us, but he just skated differently than we did. He wasn't putting all his effort into skating. It was like 2 pumps and just gliding around the ice so fast. I'd never seen anybody skate that fast without trying. Like, I'm like, I can't imagine going that fast on skates. And then I think about that McDavid goal, and I'm like, he's going like 15 times as fast.
Yeah, it's right. Like even when he's coming up again, like McAvoy does not have skating speed, really, in my opinion. But he was still like McDavid's coming up, and you're like, okay, I know he's an NHL player, but like I know how fast that this usually goes, and then you're like, oh my god, like he is.
Yeah, like I just can't imagine an ice
level
level watching somebody go that quick. Like it'll be interesting to see if Connor Bedard, because I mean, we talk about the hyped prospects, he was hyped just as much probably as Connor McDavid, and it hasn't panned out quite yet, at least in terms of the two-way game. But he's so young. But you just wonder, will he eventually round into that? Will he start to be as impressive as McDavid is? Bingo. Oh, before we move on, more nuggets from the 2007 NBA draft. Glenn Davis with a 35th overall pick to the Celtics.
It's a good pick.
Was an interesting one, but I'm curious. There were 3 players taken in that draft who averaged over 14 points a game for their careers. One was Kevin Durant, who's at 27.3. The other was Mike Conley, who was the 4th pick, who averaged 14.2. The other was a player taken with a 48th pick. I'm just wondering do you know who that is? And he was drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers technically, but ultimately played for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Marquise Daniels.
Not Zach Randolph, right?
Nope. Big man. Marc Gasol.
I was gonna
Marc
say it.
Gasol. I was
You're
gonna say
too
not
quick.
still playing, right?
Dang it.
Yeah, Marc Gasol with
It
the
was
48th
on
pick. So I guess the
a
question
dime.
is, who is the 3rd best player? If we Durant is the best player taken in that draft, who's the 2nd and 3rd best? If we include Al
Probably
Horford,
Marc Gasol.
Yeah, I'd take Gasol
Yeah.
over Conley. Yeah.
you take him over Al Horford.
Yes. I
Okay.
mean, Horford's got a lot of longevity on his side, but Gasol was the best player on multiple Western Conference championships team. I mean, Western Conference Finals teams, right?
You take him over Aaron Aflalo. There's some good players.
Close, but yes.
Yeah, I would lean Gasol over Horford too, but I just thought that was an interesting one, like between those two. One guy taking 48th, the other guy taking 3rd. But anyway.